Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we really get into the sources you bring us, your notes, your research, and we try to pull out those key insights, make things clear, give you those aha moments, not just, well, more information overload. And today we're tackling a really big one, cultural appropriation. It's debated constantly, often misunderstood, definitely evolving. But what's really cool about this deep dive is we're looking at it through your creative project. You sent us incredibly detailed notes about what you're building, and we're using that as our way in. So the big question is, how do you engage with different cultures creatively, respectfully, especially now with all this information out there and wow, these AI tools opening up possibilities?
That's exactly it. This isn't going to be a simple yes or no black and white thing.
Yeah.
Cultural appropriation is much more layered than just judging things on the surface. We'll definitely break down the main criticisms, the core issues, but just as importantly, we want to look at where genuine appreciation happens. Creative synthesis, respectful engagement. It's really about getting the why behind the concerns and figuring out how thoughtful creators, like you, can navigate it all.
Okay, so let's start peeling back those layers. First things first, maybe a working definition. We hear cultural appropriation thrown around a lot. Your notes pointed towards something that goes beyond just borrowing, right? It touches on impact, power, history.
Exactly. Generally, it's when someone from, let's say, a dominant culture adopts elements from another culture, maybe clothing, music, symbols, rituals, could be anything down.
Yep.
But it's done in a way that feels disrespectful or exploitative or just completely divorced from the original meaning, especially if it's from a group that's been marginalized or historically oppressed.
Right, that dominant versus marginalized group distinction seems key.
It's absolutely critical because at the heart of it, the criticism nearly always comes back to power dynamics in history. Think about it. If a group with more power historically takes from a group that's been pushed down, often without understanding or respect or giving anything back, well, that act, even if it's not meant maliciously, it can just reinforce those existing inequalities. It keeps the cycle going, in a way.
Okay, so like the example of wearing a Native American headdress to a festival.
Precisely. That takes something deeply sacred, ceremonial, and just turns it into a fashion accessory, completely trivializes it, or imitating an accent for a joke.
Yeah.
Seems harmless, maybe. But it can easily lean into harmful stereotypes, reducing people to a caricature. It's about who is borrowing from whom and why.
That who and why, that's where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? Because we need to separate appropriation from genuine cultural exchange. Cultures have always influenced each other. That's just human history, innovation even.
Of course. But appropriation often has these specific flags. First, that power imbalance we talked about, the borrower has more social or economic clout. Second, there's often a lack of real understanding or respect, using things in ways that just distort or cheapen their meaning. And third, this is a big one, the originators get erased, ignored, sidelined, not credited, while someone else gets praised or profits.
Yeah, you see that a lot. The original creators get forgotten.
And that's exactly why these discussions get so heated, so emotional. What feels like innocent borrowing to one person can feel like theft or deep disrespect or just another example of exploitation to someone from that source culture. That feeling isn't just random. It's often rooted in generations of being misrepresented or having their heritage turned into a commodity without their say-so.
Let's dig into some of those specific examples you categorized in your notes. One common one is misusing sacred or religious symbols, like you said, the war bonnet at a festival. Or maybe using Buddhist prayer flags just as party decorations. No idea what they actually mean.
Right. It rips these deeply meaningful items out of context, reduces them to just aesthetics, decoration. It trivializes something profound.
Another area you flagged was fashion and hairstyles, taken without credit.
Oh, definitely. Think of a big fashion label using, say, Maasai beadwork patterns without paying or even acknowledging the Maasai artisans. Or the classic example, a celebrity gets praised for wearing cornrows, calls it edgy, while black women have faced discrimination, even lost jobs for the exact same traditional style.
That's a powerful example of the inequality reinforcing itself.
It is. The original culture gets penalized for what the dominant culture gets celebrated for. It's erasure and reinforces systemic bias.
And then there's the stereotypical stuff, the performative representation.
Yeah, like using a mock Asian accent for a cheap laugh in a skit. It just reinforces these harmful, flat stereotypes. It's not just humor. It actively perpetuates damaging ideas.
And one that feels really pervasive, especially now. Cultural products used purely for profit, stripping away the meaning. Your notes mentioned yoga retreats that market it just as fitness, totally ignoring the deep philosophical roots from India.
Exactly. The culture becomes a product. Commodification, its history, its meaning, just erased or diluted for mass consumption and profit.
Okay, so that's the problematic side. But it's crucial, like you said, to contrast this with what isn't appropriation. What's healthy exchange?
Right. The distinctions matter just as much. So genuine cultural exchange often involves consent and credit. Imagine an indigenous artist teaching beadwork to someone non-indigenous. If that student then shows their work but credits and promotes the teacher, that's respectful exchange.
Okay, learning with respect.
Yeah, or just learning for understanding. Like you research a cultural dish, learn its history, cook it at home for yourself. You're not claiming expertise, not profiting, just appreciating.
And what about cultures that are already blends, like jazz music?
Great example. Jazz is this incredible mix of African and European traditions that evolved over time. Engaging respectfully with something like that, acknowledging its roots, that's not appropriation. It's participating in an evolving tradition.
And personal connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you wear a kimono at your Japanese grandmother's funeral because it's a family tradition you're part of, you were invited into it. That's about belonging, not borrowing. Direct ties matter.
So with all these distinctions, how does this apply to you and your project? Because the context, the sphere you operate in seems to change everything.
It really does.
Yeah.
Let's break down those spheres. The public sphere, high visibility, lots of scrutiny. Like we said, headdress at a festival versus a private ceremony. Very different impact. Public use risks sending a message about coolness without meaning, leading to erasure.
Okay, public is risky. What about private?
Private sphere, intent, and relationship matter more. Sharing recipes with close friends, that's exchange. But even privately, if you throw a, say, Mexican fiesta party with sombreros and fake mustaches, that reinforces stereotypes, even if just among friends. Those things can leak out.
And then the commercial sphere, you said that's the most sensitive.
Often, yeah, because money's involved. Usually the origin community sees no benefit, and the cultural meaning gets watered down for sales. Think of those chain stores selling tribal jewelry with zero connection to any actual tribe, just pure commodification.
Okay, and the last sphere. Personal creativity, research, like what you're doing.
Right? Personal reflection, research, creative hobbies. The immediate public stakes are lower, but ethics still apply. Painting in an indigenous artist's style for practice. Crediting them, not selling it without permission. That's respectful learning. But contrast that with, say, creating a fantasy world for a novel, but lifting sacred traditions wholesale from a real marginalized group without changing anything or acknowledging it. That's problematic. This is where your depth of research really matters. Is it deep learning and honoring, or just grabbing cool elements?
Which brings us right to your project. It's fascinating. A YouTube channel exploring cultures through 10 subpersonalities, 9 white, 1 black, and you yourself are mixed race, half black, half white, US-based. That's important context. And your process sounds really rigorous. Deep research on states, nations' culture, history, food, music, language, pop culture, everything. Then you use that to create AI-generated songs, 3 to 5 minutes long, and podcasts. Each subpersonality gets assigned regions, blending their character with the research, art and education combined. You mentioned countries like the US, Mexico, China, India, Japan, Nigeria, Brazil, UK, France, Ukraine. Quite a range.
It's a really ambitious and interesting approach.
And you brought up your own concerns, which is fantastic. Like using AI for regional dialects in songs, could that be misread? Or the visual shifts. Liz, a white subpersonality, appearing black for Nigeria songs. Or characters looking Asian for Japan pieces. You see it as dramatic reframing, research-driven, not malicious. And you mentioned your own Nigerian ancestry adding another layer.
Okay, let's unpack this. Based on your description, this really doesn't sound like classic appropriation. Why? Because you research first. You're blending education and art, not just grabbing aesthetics. You credit the cultures implicitly by focusing on them. And crucially, the goal isn't predatory profit. It's expression, connection, curiosity. That's so different from the power imbalance and exploitation in classic appropriation. Your model feels much more like cultural documentation mixed with interpretive art. You're interpreting cultures, not trying to be them for status.
Here's where it gets tricky, right? The perception issue. Even with good intent, those visual shifts. Liz appearing black for Nigeria. Without context, someone might see that image alone and, well, unfortunately think of things like digital blackface. Same if a character looks Asian for Japan. It's that immediate visual read without knowing the backstory.
Exactly. That's the potential disconnect between your intent and process and a quick, surface-level perception.
And the AI voices. If they sound like caricature or the AI gets pronunciation wrong, That could reinforce stereotypes even accidentally.
It could. The line between respectful inclusion and caricature is fine, especially with AI.
And then there's the identity piece. You're mixed race, but with mostly white subpersonalities. Someone unfamiliar might just see white characters performing other ethnicities. They wouldn't know about your Nigerian heritage, for instance, which makes that exploration very personal for you. It's about what the audience sees initially.
And this is exactly why that context matters framework is so vital for your project. In the private personal sphere, almost zero concern. It's your exploration. In the public educational sphere, mostly safe if you frame it well. Clear intros, video descriptions explaining your heritage, research, respect, that's essential. Commercial sphere, if you started selling lots of merch without collaboration,
Right.
much higher scrutiny, but that doesn't sound like your focus. And the artistic reframing with subpersonalities helps. They're fictional constructs. But again, the audience needs that context to understand they're interpreting, not impersonating.
So, how can you actively keep this on the appreciation side, especially with those visuals?
Okay, practical steps. 1. Transparency, always. Blurbs, captions explaining the research, the respect, the why. 2. Avoid caricature. Aim for subtle shifts in appearance or voice, not exaggerated features that echo harmful stereotypes. Research is key here. 3. Credit and link. Mention specific cultural sources, artists, traditions in your descriptions. Point people towards the real deal.
Collaboration, too, maybe.
4. Yes, collaborate where possible. Even consulting with someone from the culture or featuring a guest adds layers of respect and authenticity. And 5, frame those subpersonalities explicitly as interpretive storytellers, not identity swappers. They're like hosts guiding viewers through researched cultural landscapes.
Those seem like really solid guardrails.
They are. And honestly, your work sounds much closer to appreciation and synthesis than appropriation. The main hurdle is ensuring that perception aligns with your careful intent and process. Those core reflection questions you're already asking yourself are key. Am I benefiting unfairly? Does the source culture get credit? Is it accurate or stereotypical? Is there historical trauma involved? How would someone from that culture see this? Just asking those is huge.
You laid out your mission so clearly in your notes. It's about curiosity, self-education, exploring cultures, not profit, not exploitation, using research first, using subpersonalities as anchors, like mnemonic devices. Oh, this region reminds me of Addie because...
That mnemonic anchor idea is really smart, actually.
Yeah, creating a hub for learning through music and art, something not really out there, and using AI to do what would be almost impossible for one person: travel, languages, instruments.
And you're clearly thinking ethically about framing, representation, perception, resisting that low-effort content farm approach.
So that mission statement itself really pushes it towards appreciation.
Absolutely. It ticks the right boxes. Power. You're acknowledging, crediting, explaining, process, deep research, thoughtful integration, presentation, intentional educational framing, art reflecting research, not caricature. And those subpersonalities as mnemonic devices are a safeguard. They aren't claiming to be Nigerian or Japanese. They're fictional narrators engaging with Nigerian or Japanese culture based on your research. It's fundamentally different.
But back to that concern about quick judgments. You know, people will see a thumbnail or a short clip and jump to conclusions.
You're right, they will. The internet thrives on that sometimes, which is why framing upfront is your most powerful tool. Short intros, clear captions, maybe an about section on the channel explaining the project's philosophy. Make the respect and curiosity undeniable. It won't stop all criticism, nothing can. But it dramatically changes the conversation. It shows you've thought deeply, which encourages more thoughtful engagement in return.
Okay, let's talk about the deeper layers here, the meta stuff, because your project isn't just about the cultures, it's about the process of engaging with them. You're documenting your own journey, curiosity, research, artistic expression, and how your identity and these fictional subpersonalities shape that. That's fascinating in itself.
It really is. Those subpersonalities act almost like creative diplomats. They aren't claiming authenticity, they're interpreters. Each filters the culture through their own lens. Maybe Addie sees the playful side, Tira the wisdom traditions. It's less wearing culture, more showing culture through this lens.
And that identity gap, we mentioned you being mixed race, most subpersonalities being white. Audience understanding of you is crucial. Knowing your Nigerian ancestry, for example, completely reframes your exploration of Nigerian culture. It becomes personal, authentic for you. Context is everything.
And that public-private impact balance is always there. Your intent is clearly ethical. The impact, well, it could spark pride or it could feel reductive if someone only sees the surface. Your awareness of that risk is what makes your approach so much more likely to land respectfully. You're already thinking about potential harm.
And the project itself becomes its own thing, right? A meta culture. People engage with Addie's Brazil, not just Brazil.
Exactly. It becomes a curated, filtered experience, which is fine. All art filters reality, but it carries that responsibility, like a museum curator, to point back accurately to the source.
Which leads to a key point. You're pointing toward, not replacing.
That's a crucial distinction. Appropriation often tries to become the main voice. Appreciation acts as a signpost. If your work makes people want to find actual Brazilian musicians or Japanese historians, then you're adding to the ecosystem, not trying to dominate it. Gateway, not replacement.
Okay, let's anticipate some specific criticisms and think about how you could respond based on everything we've discussed. What if someone says you're reducing complex cultures to short songs?
A fair point on the surface. Your
Right.
response could be, absolutely, these are short pieces. They're gateways, not encyclopedias. The goal is to spark curiosity, to be a stepping stone. I always encourage listeners to dive deeper into the real voices and history.
What about the AI? Using AI for voices or instruments is inauthentic.
Frame AI as a bridge. AI lets me explore a breadth of soundscapes impossible for one person. I research heavily before prompting, and I see it as a way to introduce these sounds, hoping listeners will then seek out authentic artists from those regions who I try to highlight.
You're speaking for cultures you don't belong to.
Clarify your role. I'm exploring as a learner, not a representative. The subpersonalities are fictional narrators filtering my research, like guides, not authorities claiming insider status.
The visual changes. Changing a character's race is just digital costume.
Reframe as interpretation. It's a narrative choice, like an actor in a role, always grounded in research. It's about viewing the culture through that character's lens symbolically, not pretending the character's from there.
You're profiting from other cultures, even if not directly yet.
State your intent. This project is driven by curiosity and connection, not profit.
Yeah.
If it ever generates income, I'm committed to finding ways to credit, link, or collaborate, ensuring benefits flow back to the cultures that inspire me.
And finally, AI removes the human connection.
Emphasize your role. The human connection is absolutely central. It's in the deep research, the careful framing, the intent. AI is just a tool enabling that vision. It amplifies my engagement. It doesn't replace it.
Okay. Now for that really honest question you asked.
Yeah.
Is it really my fault if someone gets offended, even if I've laid out all my context, but they just don't see it or care?
Right. And the short answer, I think, is no. It's not entirely your fault, but it is your responsibility how you navigate it. You control your intent, your process, your framing. You don't control every single interpretation, especially online where context gets lost so easily. If you've done the work, the research, the respectful execution, the transparency you've met, your ethical responsibility, what happens after that isn't fully on you.
So that drive-by outrage.
Exactly. A lot of online criticism is just that surface-level, context-blind. It's not your job to win over everyone operating in bad faith. The key is filtering. Engage with thoughtful, good-faith critique. Absolutely. Ignore or redirect bad faith attacks. Probably wise.
Where would fault actually come in then?
But fault really only applies if you knowingly used harmful stereotypes, or deliberately ignored credible feedback from the culture itself, or just provided zero context or framing whatsoever, which, based on everything you've shared, is the opposite of what you're doing.
So the mindset shift is,
I've done my best to make this respectful and thoughtful. If someone takes offense without engaging the context, that's their read. But if someone offers constructive critique, I'm open to listening and learning. That keeps you accountable, but protects your peace.
so wrapping this up for you, what are the big takeaways from this deep dive into your project? First, your work leans strongly towards cultural appreciation, not appropriation, because of your research-first, transparent, interpretive method. Second, framing is your best friend. Make your mission, your process, your respect clear and upfront, consistently.
Crucial.
Third, intent matters, but impact counts too. Stay open to good faith feedback. Adjusting or clarifying shows respect. Fourth, not every reaction is your burden once you've done that ethical homework. Drive-by criticism often isn't about you.
Right.
Fifth, you're building a metacultural artifact. That comes with a responsibility to point back accurately to the source cultures. Be a good curator.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And finally, AI is your tool for connection. It's amplifying your human curiosity, not replacing it. Own that.
Absolutely. And, this whole exploration of your project, it really raises a bigger question for all of us, doesn't it? How can we, as a global community,
Right.
create more spaces, accessible, ethical spaces for this kind of creative cultural exploration? Spaces that genuinely bridge gaps, deepen understanding,
Yeah.
and move us beyond just consuming cultures to really engaging thoughtfully with the incredible diversity of our world. Something to think about.
That is a powerful thought to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your project notes and for diving deep with us today. It's such a complex but really vital conversation. Keep exploring with that curiosity and care. It's clearly driving something special. We'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.